Pull up and hunker down. Rick Serritella of All Access Football. Thanks for tuning in to our live stream coverage of the 2026 NFL Draft. For the past 25 years, we've been bringing you the names you need to know with independent scouting analysis on location across the nation with boots on the ground coverage from training camp to in-season visits, the All-Star Game circuit, and Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine, plus the Pro Day trails and more, capturing the path to the draft with snapshots of hundreds of NFL draft prospects. Be sure to visit allaccessfootball.com for year-round coverage of the NFL Draft and subscribe right now to get your copy of the official 2026 NFL Draft Bible featuring nearly 600 in-depth player evaluations, our exclusive insider intel, plus a look ahead at the 2027 NFL Draft. Become a disciple today and visit allaccessfootball.com. The NFL Draft Bible, the Bible of the draft used by all 32 NFL teams. Now back to the 2026 NFL Draft. Rick Serritella here for All Access Football. It's not too late to get your copy of the official 2026 NFL Draft Bible, jam-packed with nearly 600 in-depth player evaluations, insider intel on character, medical, and background reports, plus a look ahead at the 2027 NFL Draft, plus the NFL International Pathway Program prospects. We got it all covered in the NFL Draft Bible, celebrating 25 years of independent scouting analysis. Follow along in all the action. Be the most prepared person in the room with the most accurate projections available on the planet. Go get your copy now over at allaccessfootball.com. Your home for year-round coverage of the NFL Draft and everything pigskin, bringing you the names you need to know first since 2002, used by all 32 NFL teams. Thank you for your support of independent media. Now back to our live stream coverage of the 2026 NFL Draft. Hey, Rick Serritella here for allaccessfootball.com. Thanks for watching our live stream coverage of the 2026 NFL Draft. Just a quick programming reminder, the All Access Football Draft Watch show airs every Saturday morning live at 10 a.m. Eastern with yours truly, along with my co-host, Russ Lande, who brings 30 years of NFL, CFL, and XFL scouting experience each and every week. We count you down with hard-hitting analysis, the prospects, the names you need to know. The countdown is on. Destination Washington, D.C. begins now. Make sure you tune in every Saturday morning live, 10 a.m. Eastern, as we count you down to the nation's capital for the 2027 NFL Draft. Your home for year-round coverage of the NFL Draft and everything pigskin, bringing you the names you need to know first since 2002. It's what we do. Make sure you follow along with the NFL Draft Bible, the official Bible of the Draft, used by all 32 NFL teams. Thank you so much for supporting independent media. Now, back to our 2026.
Penn State when they were down 10-0. Great house is a great player. And, they feature him in a lot of different ways. But his ability just to make this throw over the top, beat man coverage right there, put it in a good location. I thought these are the type of throws that you got to make. Like everybody runs a 3-by-1 set. You're going to run the deep over. Can you drop that? The safety's on the other side of the field. He sees it right here. And so it's the right throw. It's the right read. And then he puts the right on the money right there. That's a third down conversion right there. And on the play, I believe his arm gets hit by Sawyer on this play. I think I got to, yeah, Jack Sawyer's coming on this play, and he's clean. But Sawyer does get to him a couple of times, and he still makes the throw. This pocket was pretty clean. So he makes this throw. This one, the touchdown right here, drops this one in the bucket to Greathouse. It's a great throw. Pass interference, great catch. They're back in the game right now. I thought, and then, look, there's probably ran too many quarterback powers in this game, but I thought the opening touchdown of the game is an example. This guy is a big, strong kid, probably 225 pounds, but he's pretty sturdy, and he's just like, bam, like he takes that on right there. Ohio State probably gets everybody drafted on defense, and he pushes the pile. You can kind of see his power down to the 1 yard line. He would score on the next play from the 1 yard line. I thought there was an awful lot to like about Riley Leonard. You look at him at Penn State, the Penn State win, and his ability to just basically create plays that might not be there, extend plays that are there, using his feet, using his eyes, just getting himself in a position to extend plays and get to the next set of plays once the initial play kind of breaks down, the pocket breaks down. I think he's got some creativity in him right there. Let's take a look at look, this is the biggest play probably of the whole postseason here. Jack Sawyer had a great season. I mean, Jack Sawyer, number 33 here is, he's 6'4", 6'5", he's 260. Like this play, against Ewers right here, wins the game, ices the game. Texas going in to score to tie it up right here. He beats the right tackle with just a little slide right here, like his hands, like he doesn't let the hands get into his body. And now he's able to dip and rip like Sawyer is, and he gets the ball out of Ewers' hands and he picks it up off the hop. Obviously, he takes it back to the house. Game is over. But you watch these plays, like I'm showing this play. Obviously, everybody knows this play. But I'm watching him in the passing lane, bat balls down. He's got a knack for when the ball's released. If he doesn't get there, he tips passes at the line of scrimmage. He's got the power, if you're running stunts, to really, if he's the drive guy, to penetrate on defensive linemen. If he's the move guy, the guy that's got to move, he's got good movement where he can drop his hips, he can drop his anchor. I think he's got everything it takes to be a really elite player. I don't know if he's going to be a first-round pick. There's other guys that can be for sure. But I do think that he's got the ability to get into the first round. We'll see how he tests. But he certainly has been a great player. Grew up right there in Columbus, was a Ohio State guy, bleeds, Buckeyes, the whole thing. And I thought he's been well coached besides. But you look at his size, and I don't want to compare him to Aiden Hutchinson. That's not fair. But he does play hard like Aiden. I do think he's got some great pass rush ability, not to Aiden's ability yet, but I think he's got an upside to him. I think he's going to get better at the pros. The guy opposite him is a great player right here. And I just think that when you look at this right here, you can see, let me just move one thing here a second. Tui Malo right here, just a great power rusher against the left tackle, Notre Dame. What's happening really at the NFL level, it's interesting talking to a lot of defensive line coaches, is because of the mobility of the quarterbacks, Josh Allen, you pick a guy, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Lamar. I think pass rushers are changing up the way they rush. I think it's more cage rushing now in some cases, like a Jalen Carter you'll see this weekend against a Jaden Daniels, where you can just power rush guys and collapse the pocket and keep the Josh Allens, Lamar's in the pocket, not let them get out, let them escape. And you see this from JT right here over the left tackle. Just a great power rusher. And I got to admit, when guys start grabbing a wrist right here, it takes all of the anchor away from the left tackle. He's going to lift that hand up. And when he does, you can see that when he lifts that hand up on the wrist, it raises the center of gravity of left tackle. He can't drop the anchor right now. He's removed the anchor. And now you get steady push right into Riley Leonard right here, and he takes him down. It's a great power rush. And I think there's a place for that. There's a place for that in the NFL, that type of power rush. From any, whether it's a defensive tackle or it's an edge rusher right now. I think you see that kind of stuff. Notre Dame had some great defensive backs. You look at Xavier Watts, number 0, right here. Safeties right now, whether you're Brian Branch, you're Kirby Joseph, you're any of these guys still playing right now, you've got to be able to cover. If you can't cover, you can't get on the field. So you watch Xavier Watts right here, and you watch his coverage. And here he is picking up the back. I think this is Henderson right here, like playing the ball in the air on that wheel route. It's imperative. It's imperative that you can do that. If you can't do that at safety, you're going to get picked on. You're going to get isolated. I don't care if you're the free safety or strong safety. If you can't cover on the outside, you're going to have trouble. Watch Xavier Watts right here on this play. I like him a lot. You watch his ability just to communicate. This particular play right here just caught my eye just because of his ability just to see the cutback coming right here and to get in a position to not let it get outside of him and take down, Allen right there for that particular tackle. It seems like we have a dearth of safeties in the draft. I mentioned Brian Branch, second-round pick. They're hard to find. We generally find them in free agency after they've established themselves. You look at Cincinnati, they lost both Von Bell, and they lost other safeties there. They weren't able to pay him to keep them. They went to other places. They came back to Cincinnati. You look at what Atlanta did, bringing in safeties at that position to fill the need. It seems like everybody, the Jets have been filling the need at safety for a long time. Kind of, this with free agents. Some of them work out, some of them don't. They don't seem to be able to draft it very well. Ashton Davis, maybe, is kind of a third safety. He kind of sticks out, but they haven't had great success there. But around the league, they haven't. And so it's just a question. I think Xavier Watts is the guy that people will look, closely. Let's move on here. And let's just see. I picked out like 10 or 12 players that we can look at. My favorite player, honestly, in the draft so far is Abdul Carter. I'm not going to say that he's Micah Parsons, but this guy plays the game. He's just an elite prospect. I think he's my favorite prospect in this whole draft. I think the quarterbacks will get overdrafted, but Abdul Carter, you watch this play right here against Purdue, and he's rushing the passer on a twist stunt. All right, so the ball gets out fast, as it so often does, and now what are you going to do right here? You're being blocked, and then you just watch him turn and run. And this type of play, good things happen when you get to the football. Like, he plays the game the right way. He's got an elite skill set. He's got great size. I want to see what he runs. I think he's going to run somewhere in the 4.4s. But his ability to dip, to bend, in every phase right here. Let's just see, like this play right here. Like, he's going to get to Riley Leonard right now. And like this ability to throw the hook, to shorten the edge right here, and then to drive, and then to get to the quarterback's arm with right here. Like that ability, whether you're dipping, you're ripping, you're ghosting, like that ability to bend and get to the quarterback is paramount. He's got just great talent off the edge right now. This is a good group here. You watch him in this play. And what I see right here is like his takeoff, like he explodes. Like nobody else has moved. The ball's moving and he's off. And, there's an old saying, in this coaching search that honestly, if you want to win the 100-yard dash, you got to get up to a great start. Like you constantly see him on the snap. Now, the right tackle got off to a good start too. I give him credit. Like he's moving also. But now you watch him. All right, let's swat, let's dip. Like he's got all, like a lot of these pass rushers are pretty advanced right now. They've been to academies. Like I was at Von Miller's Sack Summit this year. A lot of college kids were there already. They're getting some advanced training right here. But you see this, he's got 23 sacks in his 3 years there. I played a lot of football. You can blitz them from the inside. You can move them around.
All right, we're back at it again. All right, seeing the place to be. Rick Serritella here on this May 31st, 2026. Thank you so much for your patience here today on the All Access Football Draft Watch Show. This is our wide receiver preview edition, and I promise we're going to talk wide receivers. We're going to talk 2027 NFL Draft. My co-host, Russ Lande, will join us in just a few minutes. So, again, we appreciate the patience. Hopefully you enjoyed some of our alternate programming, one of our Baldy breakdowns from a couple years ago. So looking forward to doing more of those in the future. Of course, allaccessfootball.com is your home for year-round coverage of the NFL draft, and the content is flowing. I'll get to that in just a moment. I want to talk to you about some things going on over at the website, some things going on in the alternate football universe. It is May 31st, tomorrow. We will turn the calendar over to June, which means what a great time to talk about some of these spring leagues, summer leagues. Big shout out to my guy, Ralph Ventry, who was able to hop on and fill in for me on Wednesday of this week. We had a special pump-up edition, Continental Football League preview with the commissioner, Mike Kelly, and had a little bit of a situation going on. So Ralph Ventry stepping up to the plate. And what a great show. If you want to learn more about the Continental Football League, which kicked off last night, I was tuned in and it was exciting. And I'll start right there and we'll talk about this A.J. Brown trade, Adams exploit. Shout out to all the chat room people, John Everett, Doug Dorner, and we'll get to some of the chat room. We love getting interactive with it. So we'll talk about that A.J. Brown deal, of course. My contributions over at Boston Sports Journal, as well as the Jacob Sports Show, hosting an Eagles show. I'm kind of tapped in to the Eagles and Patriots, so we'll talk to that in just a second. But this Continental Football League, very cool for players who are looking for an opportunity to just keep the career going. Like Obi Melifonwu is there for San Antonio, playing for 84-year-old defensive coordinator Jerry Glanville, the San Antonio Toros. And I think they had about 5,000 or 6,000 people tuned into the live stream. The preseason game had 20,000 views. So for a league that's basically operating on the whim, these players get about $400, $500 a week, but they're going to get fresh film, very good level of competition. Cam Eccles, who's played quite a while in the UFL, CFL, he had a pair of touchdowns yesterday. I saw Will Arndt, who I had a chance to work with, back during the COVID pandemic. He was still trying to, latch on somewhere. And, he's probably close to almost 30 years old. He had 6 touchdowns in the preseason game, bunch of touchdown passes last night. Very good size, can make all the throws. Very cerebral quarterback, son of a coach, if I remember correctly. And great to see him just continuing his career. And the continental shift, the last 2 minutes of the half, the fourth quarter, they shift over to the Canadian Football League rules. And so that's the goal. I think they've already had somebody sign on to the CFL or the UFL, excuse me. And so that's what the league is for. What a great platform. What a great guy running the league, Mike Kelly. Again, it's about an hour-long episode on Wednesday, all the details of the league. And yes, some teams have dropped already. It's a startup league, but I think it was wonderful. And just being able to see some of these guys, Cam Eccles, Obi Melifonwu, guys like Will Arndt, was awesome. And I'll have a recap over on the website because I was taking notes. I don't have them in front of me, but I was taking notes for the 2 games that aired yesterday, and I'm excited for it. So that league is just starting, right? And the United Football League now is going into the playoffs. The United Bowl will be played on, I just had it, June 13th. Okay, so we've got 4 teams in the playoffs now. St. Louis, Battlehawks, and Orlando Storm had already clinched. So Anthony Beck's old team and Anthony Beck's new team still in the playoffs. The Birmingham dynasty is officially over. AJ McCarron could not get it done. The Stallions losing yesterday, 26-13 to the Houston Gamblers. So the Birmingham Stallions are out. Battlehawks, they actually lost to the Dallas Renegades, who were 3-0. Then they were 3-6, and then they won to finish 4-6. But Austin Reed, I retweeted the comments by head coach Rick Neuheisel, who felt Austin Reed is an NFL quarterback, and he had a lot of ups and downs, but his season comes to an end. And then we've got a doubleheader today. Orlando at DC, and DC Defenders are also in the playoffs with the Orlando Storm. I'm sure they'll not be showing too much this week. And then Louisville, who clinches a playoff berth by default due to the Birmingham loss. And I was hoping this game was going to mean something. Louisville at Columbus closes out the regular season, 6 p.m. on Fox. And then we'll have the playoffs and then the United Bowl June 13th. And then don't worry if you need your fix. The Canadian Football League kicks off this week, June 4th, which is, I think, Thursday night. You've got the Montreal Alouettes at the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And the cutdown day for the Canadian Football League officially was yesterday. And some surprising cuts like Mario Alford Jr., all CFL kick returner was cut. Some surprising releases. And so we'll talk more about that. Of course, my co-host, Russ Lande, has worked for multiple CFL teams. I also spent a year in the Edmonton Elks front office. And any CFL teams out there tuned in, man, I'd love to get back in it and would love to work with you. So just keep that in mind. So we've got UFL playoffs, Canadian Football League kickoff, and Continental Football League just, kind of in the wings, giving us football almost every day of the week. So any questions on those leagues, we're happy to talk about that. Okay, I'm going to head over to the chat room comments in a second. I do want to remind everybody, today's show is brought to you by Sports Management Worldwide. Great friends of the show. I've been working with Sports Management Worldwide for over a decade, and I did drop the link during our kind of rain delay in the chat room. If you go to the first post of the chat today, excuse me, I did drop the link over to the football GM and scouting course, which I believe starts tomorrow. And my co-host Russ Lande is one of the instructors for that course. Of course, Russ has seen it all from the college side at UCLA, NFL with the Browns and the Rams, the original XFL. He also worked there. Of course, the Canadian Football League, and now currently with the Senior Bowl, he'll serve as one of the Senior Bowl scouts for this upcoming draft cycle. So Russ is a weekly mentor instructor there. Of course, our good friend Dane Vandernat, who works in the Hamilton Tiger Cats front office, who I just mentioned, will kick off the season on Thursday. I had a chance to work with Dane for about 5 years at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, my time there. So I'll tell you, Dane is one of the best evaluators. Getting into the film room with him, you learn from Dane, you learn from Russ, and then John Wooten, who is one of the pioneers of scouting. And if you don't know much about John Wooten, you should check out his story. And our guy, Will Donahue, who comes on to the show, is actually one of the candidates for the John Wooten Fellowship program coming up this year in the NFL. So we'll keep you all posted on that. But check out the link if you're interested in working in football, if you want to get involved in scouting, player evaluation. learn more about it, take your evaluation eye to the next level, check out the link. And hey, if you just want to help out the show and just click the link, that helps us too. And that creates some awareness, and it makes the folks at Sports Management Worldwide happy just to go and check out their website. And they do have over 40 courses for all the sports. And I'm excited because we're going to be starting up the SMWW Agent Apprenticeship, which we did not do last year, but we're bringing it back by popular demand. We did it 2 years ago, and I basically take the agents under my wing, and we go through the recruiting process starting, we're going to start that here in a couple weeks. But if you go to the drop down menu over at smww.com under apprenticeships, agent apprenticeship, I'm going to save you time. I'm going to save you money. I'm going to tap you into my Rolodex that I've been doing this, 25 years now of independent scouting analysis. Russ has been doing this back since the 90s. So we're getting up there. And we're going to talk about wide receivers. We're going to talk about traits and characteristics that we look for when we evaluate wide receivers. So we'll always have that good conversation before we get into our wide receiver big board and some of the players that we like. But before we do, I did mention allaccessfootball.com, and I appreciate the love and support. Everybody in the chat room, Adams Exploits, Douglas Dorner, and John Everett, and all of you guys who do tune in every week and don't leave comments. Hey, man, drop us a line. We love getting interactive with it. And the more people we hear from, the better. And we have subscribers now from over 80 countries around the world. We're really proud of that. So when we talk about we are an international audience, the demographics show that when I go and check the analytics on YouTube, on the website, over 80 countries tuning in. So hopefully my voice in the voice translator in the other languages is sounding okay to you guys. But again, really, really appreciate that. And if you've noticed the way the media industry is going, you see a lot of these mainstream media outlets suffering from the new Google algorithm. Everything's going AI, AI, AI. And I promise you, you'll never get 1 ounce, 1 second, 1 minute wasted of your time with any AI nonsense. We are authentic. We are real. We are boots on the ground coverage. We're out there, okay, swimming amongst them, okay, like these UFO aliens now that the government is talking to us about. They're amongst us. We are out there. We're amongst the players. We're amongst the scouts. And there's a lot of good draft guides out there, but the Draft Bible is firsthand account information gathered through every step of the process. All right. Yes, Adams Exploits. I can't echo that enough. Say hello in the chat and comments. Yes. Like, share, subscribe, smash that like button wherever you're tuned in on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We appreciate that. Douglas Dorner says, "Go Storm." It's funny. I threw a little action in and looked at all the UFL teams at the beginning of the season. I sprinkled a little Louisville Kings to win the championship way back before the season even started. And we got a shot now. Chris Redmond and the fellas are keeping it alive, and Chandler Rivers looks good. They got that 1-2 backfield combination. James Robinson, remember him, undrafted out of Louisville, former 1,000-yard rusher, went through some injuries. He's gaining steam. And then Ian Wheeler, I happened to be at his pro day at Howard because they had the kid Ansem Dankwa, who was with the Eagles and then got drafted in the CFL. I saw him just got signed to the practice squad, I think, with the Toronto Argonauts. Adam Dankwa, but Edmonton had sent me to the pro day to go scout Dankwa, and Ian Wheeler was there. And I said, man, this is a good looking running back, can catch the ball out of the backfield, hard-nosed runner between the tackles, hits the hole hard. And now you're seeing Wheeler and Robinson with that 1-2 punch for the Louisville Kings with Chandler Rivers at the gun helm. I mean, I think Louisville's got a shot, so I'm rooting for it. But the Storm, Anthony Becht is a good friend, so I'm really rooting for him. And I'd like to see the Storm do it. But I don't mind. The odds were tremendous. They were really a long shot. So we got in by default with the Birmingham loss. And Nick Marsh says, John Everett says, if Nick Marsh improves his hands, watch out. He has rare talent. We're going to get into the wide receivers here shortly. I just saw Russ is about 5 minutes away from joining us. And I promise you, we're going to talk a lot about what I think could be a historic wide receiver class. So we do appreciate the patience. Some patient pants required today. Let's see what Douglas Dorner's talking about. Counted 45 receivers projected for the 26th draft, or at least eligible for the 26th draft, who ended up not declaring NIL likely in some of those decisions. Absolutely. And that's why the NCAA has had to put this rule in effect, basically say, hey, you get 5 years to play 5 seasons, and that's it. You're out of eligibility. None of these exemptions, none of these waivers. And again, none of these lawsuits. Like, enough is enough with the lawsuits. But you're right, Doug. I mean, the NIL is like, hey, unless you're a top first round pick, chances are I can go make more guaranteed. That's what it is. It's guaranteed money. The NIL is guaranteed. Once you go to the pros and you're not a first round guy, you get that contract, but there's no guarantees. You got to earn that now every day. College, I can go take some days off, do what I want, enjoy the college life. That NIL payment's still coming. Regardless, it's guaranteed, right? It is guaranteed money, and that's why players are staying longer and longer. The only thing Adam knows about Louisville are the bats. Well, I'll tell you, man, I've gotten down to Louisville the last 2 years for training camp, and James Madison and Coach Bobby Chesney now is over at UCLA. And I'll tell you what, when you're from New Jersey, Adam, and you go down there to these Louisvilles of the world, um, first of all, it's different food, right? So you're not getting the Jersey style food. I don't want to say it's better, but it's good food. And then when you go out and eat at these local establishments and you get the check or the bill or the tab, you are like you're in awe. You're sticker shock in a great way. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about leaving New Jersey. You go and visit Louisville and you go hang out and you get that tab at the end of your meal. You feel like you got a 50% discount. Oh my God. But that's why we live in New Jersey. It's the greatest state. We got everything there is, and that's a whole nother show. Yes, Louisville, I agree. It's a cool city. It's key. It's low key vibes, but it's got some excitement and action, just like any other city if you're looking for it. So, all right, we'll talk about a wide receiver, AJ Brown, who may get traded, who probably is going to get traded. In fact, by this time tomorrow or after 4 p.m., he could have a new uniform. And I do believe it's going to be the New England Patriots. Now, you're hearing some other teams could get involved. And, man, I can't imagine a team that makes more sense than the Kansas City Chiefs. And you got Travis Kelce on his last legs. Obviously, the whole Rashee Rice situation is a disaster. The Xavier Worthy roll of the dice hasn't exactly panned out. Now, I love this kid, Cyrus Allen, out of Cincinnati. I think he could be a contender for Rookie of the Year. You heard it here first on May 31st. And I don't know what the odds are on that, but Cyrus Allen has a great chance to be the NFL Rookie of the Year. But why not add an AJ Brown? If I'm the Chiefs, they're always going to have the window open with Patrick Mahomes there. But I do believe, and I know we've said this for the last 3 or 4 years, but I do believe this is the final run for Travis Kelce. And if you can get AJ Brown remotivated and thrust into that Chiefs offense, I actually think it would put the Chiefs back into, like, because what they did in the draft, they added like 6 defensive players in the draft. They got Mansour Delane, they got R. Mason Thomas. Then you add an AJ Brown. I think that would be the difference of the powers. I actually think that would shift the pendulum to Kansas City back over New England. Like, I think whoever gets AJ Brown will be the team to beat in the AFC. And if it's the Patriots, I think it makes them the team to beat. And if it's the Chiefs, I think the Chiefs are going to be right back there on the mountaintop. And I heard Jacksonville was also a sneaky contender. And that would be interesting, wouldn't it? After what they did last year. Yeah, another Chiefs wide receiver that has off-field issues. But A.J. Brown's not necessarily an off-field issue. He's just an attitude issue. Yeah, how he's using Shefty to plant some seeds is probably true. John Everett says Brown is going to Foxborough. I agree. I think it will be the Patriots, but it is interesting how the dynamics of the AFC can change with this one trade. It is that big of a deal. AJ Brown will not be back in Philly, says Doug Dorner, but no other team will swoop in. Deal may be delayed. Also, the Howie factor. I don't know. I think I think ultimately they're going to come off a 2028 first round pick and maybe throw back. They have a receiver there that was being talked about as being a throw-in back to the Patriots, and I think a first round in 28 and one of the wideout. Booty. They were talking about Kayshon Booty, right? Who's been the second leading receiver for New England in each of the last 2 seasons. He's had over 500 yards. Great return on a 6th-round pick. You throw in Booty, you give him a 2028 first rounder. That should probably do it. And it's addition by subtraction if you're the Eagles, because we've talked about this a million times. It only takes one bad apple to spoil the bunch. All right, that leads us into our wide receiver preview show. Again, we appreciate your patience here. And today we're going to talk wide receivers. Last week we did running backs. The week before we did quarterbacks. Next week we'll do tight ends. And to do that each and every Sunday is my co-host, as I alluded to earlier, as you guys were waiting, formerly working in the UCLA recruiting department before eventually moving on to the St. Louis Rams, eventually the Cleveland Browns. Also worked with the original XFL, multiple organizations in the Canadian Football League who had their cuts yesterday and are kicking off Thursday night. A former host on the CBS Today show. Again, we talked about his SMWW football GM and scouting course, new curriculum starting tomorrow over at smww.com. And now a newly minted scout over at the Panini Senior Bowl, which we're ecstatic about. And my co-host each and every Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time, checking in from Chi-Town, Chicago. It's a mess over there. They're bringing in the military. They got riots in Chicago, riots in New Jersey, but we got nothing but peace, love, and harmony when Russ Lande joins the All Access Football Draft Watch Show. Good morning, Russ. How are we doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm trying to find out what riots we're talking about. I haven't seen any of those yet.
Oh, man, you guys have gotten shootings like all weekend. They want to bring in the National Guard. And then, they had some stuff going on last night down there in Newark where they're always rioting. So everybody's angry. I always say the world's most friendliest airport, EWR. So we've got wide receivers on tap. The chat room says good morning. And before we get into the wide receiver big board, Russ, like we do each and every week, I just want to give an overview about the wide receiver position, some of the characteristics and traits. And I know you're a big advocate of it, especially when I first came into this business. You were one of the first people that were quick to point out, like, everybody is so fascinated on the speed element. And we've got into this a little bit last week with running backs, but I think it's even more pertinent to the wide receiver position because I forget if it was you or somebody else who actually did a survey around the league and averaged out the starting wide receivers' 40-yard dash times, and it was 4.52. It wasn't 4.4 something. It was 4.52. And I think what wins in the NFL is route running, the ability to separate. But what separates a good receiver from a great receiver is what you can do after the catch. And those who can plant their foot, get upfield, create yards after contact, those are the ones like a Jackson Smith and Jigba, like a Jamar Chase, like a Justin Jefferson that are going to rise to the elite level. But I think, in a system like
Mike McDaniel in a system like Andy Reid, yes, speed is the trait you can't teach. But when you take the whole body of work of the National Football League, what is more consistently working is just sound technique.
Well, there's no question. I mean, hey, don't get me wrong. We would all love all our receivers to run like Tariq Hill and Jalen Waddle and just be able to pull away from anybody in the NFL. But let's be realistic. What are there? 4 guys in the league. They're complete receivers that have that speed. You just don't find it. So if your whole goal is we're going to have the fastest receiver in the world, you're probably going to have a lot of receivers that are one-dimensional, that aren't going to be able to do everything. It's going to limit your offense. So what do I look for? Yeah, I love the fast guys. But hey, let's be realistic. I love the guys with good speed, but with excellent short area quickness, that understand how to run routes, that understand body positioning. And the thing that gets overlooked a lot and doesn't get talked about enough is that catch the ball the right way. Because people always like to talk about, oh, he'll learn, he'll improve, he'll become better catching the ball. You and I have been doing this a long time. In my entire career of doing this, there are 3 receivers ever, one of whom I can never remember his name, but 3 receivers ever that have come in with questionable hands, that had drops in college, that became sure-handed good receivers. One was Julio Jones, who dropped a lot of balls at Alabama, but was committed and put in unbelievable time and effort to become not just a good ball catcher in the NFL, but an elite hands guy. Golden Tate was a guy that at Notre Dame dropped some balls that he probably shouldn't have. In the NFL, he became much more consistent. There was one other one. I can't remember who.
Terrell Owens.
It might have been Terrell Owens. Yeah, it might have been Terrell Owens. Yeah. And one of the things you see is, and it's hard to knock it, is almost every athlete, whatever sport their goal to achieve is, it's to become a professional. And once they achieve that, it's hard to tell them in their head that they've done it the wrong way. So to tell a receiver who's made it to the NFL, who's made a roster, that in order to stay as good as he is, he has to work on catching the ball. It's just stay after practice, use the judge machine for 500 or 1,000 catches. I think a lot of time they don't hear that because, hey, I made it to the NFL. I work hard. I know how to catch the ball. And I think it sometimes falls on deaf ears and you don't see them improve their hands. So I think short area quickness, ability to run precise routes, hands. And I will say in today's NFL, you also can't have, it's really hard. There are some, but it's really hard to have receivers who are really limited mentally. 20 years ago, you could get away with a little bit more because you just say, go out to your spot. And if it's zone, run this. If it's man, run this. Nowadays, there's sometimes a receiver breaks the huddle where he has 7 to 9 options based on not only man or zone, but proximity of the corner, proximity of second defender, who is second defender, all those different things. So you also need the mental sharpness. So don't get me wrong. Like I said, we all want Tariq Hill speed. Everybody does. Those are the few and far betweens. But the Keenan Allens, the Justin Jeffersons, not that they're the same speed, but they're both guys that are not 4-2 just running away from people. They're really good athletes with really good short area quickness who run phenomenal routes, have great hands, but they're not in the top 5 in the NFL in pure speed. And it's important to look at pure playing speed, not timed speed. Playing speed, even wearable speed, are way more important than 40-yard dash time.
Yeah, and I like some of these next gen stats now. They give you kind of the change of direction speed, how quickly you turn the corner, and you could really get into it with the analytics, which, as you know, is becoming increasingly more and more prevalent in the NFL with the influx of AI, and we could probably spend a whole nother show on that conversation. Now, we're talking about top end, high end, starting level receivers. We should also spend a second on the backup receivers because we're seeing, Russ, more wide receivers than ever before. I'm sure Doug Dorner has the number handy. I think there was like an all-time record receivers drafted this year. It's been trending like that in recent seasons. And you're seeing teams now even carry 6 wide receivers on game day. So when you're talking about, you've got, the 3 starters, we'll say with the slot, your wide receiver 4, 5, and 6. If you want to make the roster, here's where the intangibles come into play. If you can be a blocker that can contribute in the run game, if you have special teams experience, especially if you have return ability, what are some of the things that you look for the backup position, those guys trying to make 47 to 53? And what are some of the teams that, or some of the traits that NFL teams are seeking?
Well, first, I'm just going to make a quick point. You were mentioning the analytics and stuff like that. One of the big analytics that NFL teams love, because we're talking about like what you cannot say from like testing data, but in game. The year the Rams took Cooper Kupp, they had their receivers ranked, and they had a big group in the third round. They had about 9 receivers that they felt were between second to third round receivers, and they ranked them. And number 1 in the whole draft, not just of their 9 receivers, in the entire draft that year, in gaining separation versus tight man-to-man coverage, was Cooper Kupp. And they felt that that was a trait, and this was 10 years ago almost, when analytics was just burgeoning into being used. They felt that was a really important trait. Obviously, it worked for Cooper, and it has now been shown that there's a direct correlation between amount of separation in college and success at the NFL, just like amount of success defeating press and being a good receiver in the NFL. So those are 2 big things for guys who become starters. For backup,
well, no, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because I just read something where they used the AI also in identifying Puka Nacua, and Kupp was a 3rd-round pick. Puka Nacua was a 5th-round pick. But the Rams have been playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. They're just now catching up to what the Rams have been doing, to your point. And that's a big reason why James Gladstone got the Jacksonville Jaguars job, because he basically brought that entire model over to the Jaguars, and they're now implementing the same exact technology.
Yeah, they use that technology, use their analytics, and also give the Rams credit for another thing that I'm sure Jacksonville is doing. Is the Rams are the first team, and this was a decade ago, and you talk about how do receivers make it that aren't the starters? How do guys make it that are backups? And you have to make it as a backup to develop into a starter, unless you're a superstar coming in the league. And one of the things the Rams do, and I think it's brilliant, they have a scout, and I think it's up to 2 now, but I know it was definitely 1, whose only job is to evaluate every player they give a draftable grade to on special teams only. And they assign a special teams grade, not just and this is when I was a Brown scout, we would go to meetings and they would say, all right, what would you think he is as a special teams player based on me watching 3 games of him as a player? It was projecting. This is someone who's actually watching every single snap of all of these players on special teams and grading them. So the Rams day 3 picks and all their undrafted guys have very, very high special teams grades, because how does a guy make your roster and contribute or stick around as a backup guy for 2 or 3 years to develop if he can't contribute on special teams? So that's a really, to me, smart move they made. One of the things in my years of, and you've seen this, there are guys that are elite receivers, elite players, but especially we're talking receivers today, from the moment they get on campus. Like, they're never a backup. So they're not running down on punt returns. They're not a gunner. They're not doing any of that because they're your number 1 receiver. Well, how do you judge them in terms of determining if they can do it, what their intangibles are? Well, one of the things that I always felt was important, and now analytics has sort of backed it up, is guys that don't give effort as blockers when they're playing receiver rarely become even adequate special teams players. Because if you're not willing to block to help your teammates, what are the odds are you're going to compete and put your body in the way to get run over to help on special teams? So it's the whole mix of, you try to figure out from film their competitiveness, their blocking, all those things. You got to talk to people, the schools. It takes a lot for a guy to develop. And I'll give you a great example. You and I probably remember there was a kid that came out over a decade ago now out of Michigan State, went in the 2nd round, named Devin Thomas. Big receiver, pretty looking kid. Everybody was saying this kid was going to be a star. Well, he never really made it as a receiver. He was just a guy. But if you remember, he was a 4 or 5-time special teams captain in his career. And that's what allowed him to play. I think he played 7 years, and he never made it as a primary receiver. But he really developed into an excellent special teams player. And that's something that can't be overlooked. Guys that can contribute on teams can develop and can stick around for a long time. if you aren't contributing on special teams, A, I can't get you on my 53 during the season. So you're stuck on my practice roster. And B, if you don't compete hard enough to win, to be a special teams guy, are you likely to compete hard enough when you're on the practice roster, do the extra work to really improve? Or are you just a body out there in practice? So those intangibles that you mentioned, that is 100% a key part of receivers developing.
And I'm thinking about the kid that just tore out his ACL at the minicamp for the Giants, that Gunnar Oslowski.
Yep.
Guy didn't really do much
100%.
in the offense, but he's been hanging out 6-7 years just playing special teams, you know.
Yep. Special teams is a career. If you're good, most good teams give the special teams coach about three positions besides kicker, punter, snapper, and they say, hey, if there's tiebreakers, you're choosing the guy that makes it at certain positions because we're going to give you at least 3 studs on teams.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is a way, and I think the best teams have always done that. And I think the Rams deserve a lot of credit for really assigning just as a special team scout. I think it's a brilliant idea that Les did, and it's over a decade old now.
Yeah, great insight from Russ Lande, getting inside his head. He sat inside the chair with the Rams, the Browns, of course, XFL, UFL, CFL, now with the Senior Bowl, and we're looking forward to the roster that you guys put together for this upcoming Panini Senior Bowl. Of course, we'll be down there in Mobile, and we've got several months to go, Russ, so we're going to talk about some of the players that you'll be scouting and evaluating for the Senior Bowl. And a couple chat room comments. Doug Dorner says 36 wide receivers drafted this past year. 32 is the average. So, again, just trending more and more. 80 undrafted free agents signed. So you got 116 rookie wide receivers in training camp. Unbelievable numbers when you think about it. And then I did see a question from John Everett. Thoughts on DeAndre Moore of Colorado? I don't have a lot of them because I haven't dug into him a whole heck of a lot. I know he was at Texas last year. What I can tell you is based on the people we've spoken to, and we're posting the top prospects for each team. We got through the SEC. We're currently on the Big Ten, and we'll get through to the ACC and the Big 12 eventually, along with Colorado. Right now, he is the highest rated Buffalo's prospect, and he comes in at 5'11" and 6/8, 191 pounds, expected to test in the mid 4.4 range. But we believe, it looks like he could very well be in that day 2 equation when it comes to DeAndre Moore, and that's somebody we'll talk about and look at as the season wears on. What we're going to do for today's exercise, like we've done on our previous 2 shows, is just kind of go through our internal big board here at the NFL Draft Bible. And I do want to warn everybody, we posted draft rankings immediately after the NFL draft back in, April, early May. We've since updated it internally. I'll work on trying to update that externally, publicly on the website. So I'm going to go off of our most up-to-date big board. And you say, well, Rick, what's changed in the past month? They didn't play any games. Well, we've spoken to some folks and we've gathered some information. And so what we do is kind of take that feedback, compile it, and come up with our internal preseason big board. Again, a lot of moving and shaking over the next 11 months or so, a lot of moving and shaking over the next 6 months or so till we get to the Senior Bowl. And Dorner points out, yes, Moore had 532 yards as kind of a third or fourth wheel for the Longhorns. He will be the go-to guy there in Colorado. Now, we'll get into the big board. And usually we take the top 10 or so and talk about it. But because we mentioned it last week, what a historic, potentially all-time wide receiver class this is going to be. We'll get into the top end half, and I know Russ had to step out for a quick second. He'll be right back. So, again, that's what we call a tease. Real quick, what I didn't get to while we were waiting for him was some of the things that are going on over at allaccessfootball.com. And I was going to wait till the end of the show to do that, but we'll get it out of the way now. and then that way we can just tidy some things up. So I mentioned we have the 2027 NFL Draft Tracker. We've posted all of the SEC teams, the top prospects for you to dive into. We're now on to the Big Ten, and I know we posted Iowa, we had Indiana, Illinois, so we're like 3 teams into the Big Ten. We have Maryland coming tomorrow up on the website. And we're also going to be rolling out our scouting reports for the 2027 NFL draft cycle. So we had 567 scouting reports in the 2026 NFL Draft Bible. We're hoping to do more this year, and that's going to begin this week. Big shout out to Big Law. Hey, brother. Always a pleasure to have Big Law on the show. And, of course, he's hosted plenty of shows here on the All Access Football Network. And Big Law, we'll talk because I do have some summer engagements. May need you to step in for me and hold it down here in a couple dates in the summer with our guy Russ Lande. You and I can talk more off the air about that. And then also, again, we have all the shows archived wherever you're watching, whether it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter X. While you're here, smash that like button, share, subscribe for the new show alerts. Go over to allaccessfootball.com. Make sure you get our year-round coverage of the draft there. We have updates just about every day, sometimes multiple updates throughout the day, and a lot going on to get caught up with. So, all right. Wyatt Young, Oklahoma State, one to watch after a very productive season at North Texas. I like that, Doug Dorner. Did he stay there at North Texas, or did he since transfer like a lot of those mean green players did? And that's what I love about our audience here in the chat room. We've got experts, we've got analysts, we've got industry professionals, and we appreciate that love and support. And of course, if you subscribe over at allaccessfootball.com, you'll get that 2027 NFL Draft Bible. You see the 2026 edition hanging out in the background. So make sure you take advantage of that. All right. We'll have Russ back in just a second. I'm just going to go through the top 5 names and react to them, and then Russ can react to them when he comes back. And like I said, we don't know how many of these guys are going to declare, but even if half of them do, the way this is shaping up to be, it will blow like this year's draft class out of the water, where Carnell Tate was the first receiver taken. What was that, 4th overall? I'm not even sure Carnell Tate would be the 4th best wide receiver in terms of draft eligible prospects that we have on the board. And so his teammate, Jeremiah Smith, takes the cake. And some of you might say, well, hey, Rick, didn't Carnell Tate outplay Jeremiah Smith? Wasn't Tate kind of the go-to guy? I think they alternated. I think they took turns. But I think when you are evaluating Smith, some of the things that I would put ahead of Tate is just the immediate impact. He dominated from day one, from the moment he stepped on campus, and he was dominant in high school. And so you talk about just the impact this guy has made. And you also talk about, because of his presence, the living that guys like Carnell Tate and Emeka Egbuka were allowed to have, because so much attention and double team coverage was focused to Jeremiah Smith. So in a way, he helped construct and make and build the careers of a Carnell Tate and Emeka Egbuka. And when you look at the numbers, I think it's insane. He's got like 2,500 yards and almost 30 touchdowns through 2 seasons. I think what you're talking about now is another year like that, where he almost had 1,500 yards and 20 touchdowns last year. If he does that again, I mean, you are truly talking about one of the greatest college football wide receivers, not in this draft, but we're talking about possibly of all time. I mean, Jeremiah Smith is that good. So I think that's just some things to factor. But then you take a look at the size: 6'3", 225 pounds, and he's going to probably run in the mid to low 4.3 range. Okay, so when you talk about checking off the boxes, just name the box and we'll check it. Size, check. Speed, check. Athleticism, check. Production, check. Pedigree, check. Route running, check. Hands, check. I mean, this guy, I would not be surprised if he's in New York City as a Heisman Trophy finalist. I would not be surprised if he winds up being the number 1 overall pick. And what was it, 1997? I think you got to go back to Keyshawn Johnson the last time that happened. And I would dare to say Jeremiah Smith is a higher rated prospect than Keyshawn. I'll get over to the chat room in a second, but coming in at number 2 on our board, and it's close, but it's another one of these big-bodied, big, fast, explosive receivers. Cam Coleman, who transferred over to Texas, 6'3", 210 pounds. Again, going to test in the 4.38 range. We have him listed. Incredibly productive, incredibly vertical, incredibly fast. And I can only imagine now what Cam Coleman is going to do paired with Arch Manning. Are you kidding me? And the SEC is going to be fun to watch because we've got quite a few of these quarterback wide receiver duos we'll talk about. But Coleman, when you think about the pedestal that we just put Jeremiah Smith on, I would say like Cam Coleman is not a huge significant drop off. And so I'm not sure that Smith is in a whole separate class, but I would say that Cam Coleman is right there in the top tier when it comes to top draft eligible prospects for the 2027 NFL draft. Now you start getting, deep into the ice cream shop and different flavors and what do you prefer. I will tell you that Mario Craver from Texas A&M is very, very highly thought of amongst the scouting community. He comes in at 5'9" and 2/8 inches, a little bit light at 165. Now, these are spring measurements, so he's going to have to pack on some weight there. But again, he might be the fastest receiver. And all of our top 5 receivers are going to test in the 4.3 range from what we've gathered, okay? So Mario Craver, Texas A&M at 3. And I did see a comment from John Everett saying Ryan Coleman Williams from Alabama, again, staying in the SEC, needs to improve his hands to recapture some of that lustrous draft appeal, right? And I'm right there with you, John. He comes in at 5'11", 6'8" inches, 178 pounds, 4.3 speed, but he did have, I think, 7 or 8 drops this past season. And that's a real problem. And that's a big issue. And you can't win with drops. And despite all those drops, we have him ranked at number 4. And I think that speaks to the talent. Again, immediate impact, very productive, SEC resume. And just look at the last 3 guys we rattled off. Cam Coleman, Mario Craver, Ryan Coleman Williams, all battling it out in the SEC. Some really good matchups we're going to get to discuss on a weekly basis here. Okay, coming in at number 5, we've got Charlie Becker. And remember now, Becker was kind of on ice, break glass in case of an emergency. Elijah Surratt goes down, in steps Becker, clutch plays, incredible playoff performance, multiple big-time touchdowns, multiple momentum-changing plays. He comes in at 6'3", 207, and again, sub 4.4 speed. And somebody mentioned Nick Marsh, who transferred over from Michigan State. And I think he led the Spartans in receiving in each of the last 2 seasons. We got Marsh sitting at 13 right now, and we'll get there. Marsh, 6'2" and 5/8, 203. Again, 4.4 range. And you talk about what Kirk Cignetti has done now in assembling another. And they got 2 running backs we talked about last week in Lee Beebe and Turbo Richard. It's reloaded. in Indiana with John Hoover, who's a boneheaded quarterback, but Signetti will write him a prescription and get him right. But again, hell of a wide receiver class. Yes, absolutely right. But we got Smith at 1, Coleman 2, Craver 3, Coleman Williams 4, Charlie Becker 5. And then one of the best kept secrets right here in New Jersey, KJ Duff from Rutgers. Are you kidding me? 6'5", 225. We got him in and around 4.50 40. This guy is going to be a menace, and he was a problem last year. And unfortunately, Ian Strong transferred. He took the NIL money and went out to Cal to play with JSP. But Duff remained committed, and Duff had a lot of portal offers. And Schiano did a great job keeping him in the Garden State, keeping him in Jersey. And I'm telling you, KJ Duff, if he's not a first-round pick, he's going to be a top 50 guy. Now, Isaiah Satenga III from Oklahoma, 5'10", 188 pounds. He might be in contention to break the 40-yard dash time. We got him right in and around 4.3, 4.35, number 7 on our big board. We mentioned Cam Coleman at Texas. Ryan Wingo from Texas comes in at number 8. Little bit of a down season last year, but again, 6'2", 214 pounds. Good speed. Bryant Wesco Jr. from Clemson comes in at 9, and you're now seeing the common denominator. There was a few small guys, but Wesco 6'2" and 4/8, 180 pounds, little light, great speed. Okay, and then rounding out the top 10, you've got TJ Moore from Clemson, who the scouts love, 6'3", 194, 4.46. And the list goes on and on. Like, you talk about big, tall, fast. Number 11, Reed Harris, who transferred from Boston College. He's now at Arizona State, 6'4", 220. Nick Harbor, let's talk about him a second. And I'm overvaluing him at 12 from South Carolina, 6'6", 243. This guy is a high school track record holder. And I will say that Nick Harbor has probably made some of the biggest plays in college football over the last 2 seasons. And I'm going to be guilty as charged here when I say I admit I'm a sucker for the talent and the traits of Nick Harbor, because he's not the polished route runner. He doesn't have it all together. You're waiting for the light bulb to turn on. But golly, when he flashes, it's just things that nobody else can do. Like, Nick Harbor can make plays that nobody else in this draft, not even Jeremiah Smith, can do. Well, maybe I'm lying, but I love Nick Harbor. But the consistency, the technique, the route running that we talked about, I'm guilty as charged overlooking these downfalls because of the upside and the dangerous potential word. But to me, I know Nick Harbor has first-round potential. Will he live up to it? But again, just a beast at 6'6", 243 pounds, track speed. Oh my gosh. Nick Marsh, we mentioned, big-bodied receiver. How about Deuce Robinson? Okay, now if you watch college football, you know how big, fast, and explosive Deuce Robinson out of Florida State is. And he comes in at number 14 on our board, 6'6", 229. We have him at 4.50. Chance Barnett makes a good point, and I almost mentioned it a second ago. He says, "Do you suggest Nick should move to tight end?" Well, it might be inevitable, Chance. And I appreciate the question, because if he can't put it together, and he's got a heck of a quarterback throwing to him in Lenore Sellers, if that light bulb can't turn on, well, you say, well, you know what? Not the greatest route runner, but man, imagine him running down that seam route from the tight end spot. What a mismatch he can be. I wouldn't be against it. And I think you might even have yourself an elite tight end. And you have yourself a questionable wide receiver, or potentially an elite receiving tight end. That might ultimately be the move for Nick Harbor. John Everett says, yeah, he is a disinterested blocker. That's the problem. But, you're going to have to, Terrell Pryor his ass and teach it up. All right. How did Evan Stort's rehab go? As far as I know, he's back now, healthy. He comes in at number 17 on our board, 5'11" and 1/8, 171 pounds. He's another one of these 4'3" guys. And Evan Stewart was expected to have a huge, huge year for the Oregon Ducks a year ago. Got hurt early, was very limited. As far as I know, I think he was back in spring ball. I think he's 100%. I think he's good to go. And I'm probably have him a little bit too low, but I want to see him get back to being healthy and not just talking about it, but being about it. And so that number 17 ranking can change. And Douglas Dorner always has the report. Yes, apparently went smoothly and is preparing for the upcoming season. I did see that when I was preparing for the Lande's college football preview magazine. So we left off at Nick Harbor at 12, Nick Marsh at 13, Deuce Robinson at 14, Deuce Alexander from Ole Miss. Okay, now you're getting into some of the slot types, 5'11", 180 pounds. Eric Singleton Jr., who's transferred to Florida, 5'9", 187. Evan Stewart, who we just mentioned, right behind him. Cooper Barquette. Remember him from Duke? Well, he followed his quarterback, Darian Mensah, over to Miami with Mario Cristobal. And remember now, they've got Malachi Toney, who's not draft eligible. And boy, isn't that a conversation? Who's the best player in college football? You could argue Jeremiah Smith. You might be able to argue Malachi Toney. And we'll be talking about his draft prospects next year. But, man, I'm a huge fan of Malachi Toney. Total different player. But, again, just in rarefied air. But now you've got Cooper Barquette, who's this polished route running technician, possession type receiver at 6'1.5", 195, pairing with Toney. Yeah, the NIL money, Doug, is coming in over there down in Coral Gables. All right, Devin McCoon from Ohio State comes in at 19. And then Ian Strong, who I mentioned earlier, transferred from Rutgers. I could see him soaring because they've got a phenomenal quarterback. Again, we'll be talking about the quarterback there for next year's draft. But Strong, 6'4", 216. Just gargantuan wide receivers in this year's draft. So there's your top 20. We start getting into the quote-unquote tier 2, tier 3 guys. And these are, again, very highly thought of players. Now, remember, of those top 20 guys we just rattled off, a lot of those are underclassmen. So probably half of those guys are going to probably return back to school, right? So that means what? When you talk about guys 20 through 30, they're 20 through 30 on our board, but these are guys that could probably be day 2 and maybe even day 1 guys. But you're talking about guys who are still in the day 2 conversation. All right. 21, we have Omarion Miller out of Arizona State. You'll be hearing a lot about him this season. Another Ohio State receiver at 22. So you got Devin McCoon at 19. Brandon Innes in the slot at number 22. I think Julian Sayin is set up for success here. 3 guys, again, from Ohio State. They are wide receiver university. Then you get into Coy Eakin from Texas Tech. 6'2", 210, inside-outside versatility at 23. Jace Brown at LSU, who transfers over from Kansas State, I believe. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Jace Brown because we talked about it at the top of the show. The drops. What kills me about Brown, I'm watching him, and the drops just come in crucial moments, big-time spots, and it's just unacceptable, right? And so I've got to see more consistency. Now, LSU's spent a lot of bad money on wide receivers. This could turn out to be good money. And I know our friend Eric Galco at the East-West Shrine Bowl is a huge fan of Jace Brown. He had an invite on the table this year. So at the very least, he's going to be playing in the Shrine Bowl come January, maybe the Senior Bowl. But I got to see more consistent hands out of Jace Brown. All right, Tennessee, they got a pair of receivers that are draft eligible. Mike Matthews, 6'1", 200 pounds, comes in at 25. Braylon Staley, a redshirt sophomore, 5'11", 190. He comes in at number 30. Sandwiched in between them is Griffin Wild at 26 out of Northwestern. Remember, he transferred from South Dakota, I think it was, 6'2", 200 pounds. He'll be a good-looking receiver there for the Wildcats once again. DeAndre Moore Jr. from Colorado, 27 on our board, and he may be on the move up because, again, we got some feedback, very highly thought of. Trey Richardson from Vanderbilt comes in at 28. He's a slot, twitchy, wide out. Micah Hudson from Texas Tech comes in at 29. And then another, Richardson's at 28. Vanderbilt again at 31. Junior Sherrill. They might actually need to be flip-flopped. Junior Sherrill, a dynamic receiver in his own right. Okay. If you were tuned into the alternate program, we got a little late start. Brian Baldinger was breaking down Jaden Greathouse out of Notre Dame, 6'1", 215 pounds, was injured all of last year. And this is a make or break season for him. It could go one way or the other. He could catapult back up draft boards, or he could just become a forgotten lost cause altogether. But him and his teammate Jordan Faison are 33 and 34 on our big board. Isaiah Horton, the former Alabama receiver, now at A&M, comes in at 35. Okay, so we'll pull up right there. Danny Scudero, who I think led the nation in receiving last year, he's also at Colorado, undersized, 5'8", 175. But the Coach Prime did pretty well in the portal. He got some talent there. Can he put it all together? We'll see. Chance Barnett says Nick Anderson, can he kind of bounce back at Kentucky? And Kentucky's been taking all these SEC cast-offs and guys that don't pan out. And yeah, Nick Anderson was one of these guys we were all hyped up for and excited about. We got him at 6'4", 205, 450. And they basically have him listed in according to the NFL grades I have in front of me that are direct from the league. He's a day 3 fringe kind of prospect. And again, it's just got to really click, and he's got to do it and stop flashing and living off the hype. But yes, highly recruited. And it was a shame because they had all these hyped up receivers at LSU a year ago. Nussmeier was hurt all year and never really materialized. And Nick Anderson was part of that equation. So you hate to see it. Hopefully he can get it going. And again, I'll work on trying to post the updated big board because we've got well over 70 receivers now listed on our big board. And again, we'll make this available throughout the week. We have player rankings. We have team prospect rankings. We've got the 2027 scouting reports that are going to continue to flow. Yeah, Scudero, I know he was leading the lead in the country in receiving at one point, finished up with 1,300 yards. Real twitchy, makes a lot of great plays. He's just a tiny guy. And we've talked about tiny durability issues. And, we didn't cover that too much with traits and characteristics, but you start getting scared, like there's certain cutoffs that you start getting scared. Like, hey, Rick, what's the cutoff? Does he check the boxes? Well, if you're under 6 feet, you kind of have a mental engraving in your head. Okay, size. We can live with 5'11". We can get away with 5'10" and change. Now, when you start seeing the receivers in 5'9" territory, right, and you start seeing guys below 180 pounds, and we just mentioned one receiver, 165, that's scary as heck. That scares me. In a league where guys 360 pounds are falling on you, right? So just take a look at the Tank Dells of the world. There's a million instances of these guys. And also the smaller guys always tend to have hammies. Hammy issues are really prevalent in leaner, fast, small players. You got to be careful of that. Okay. So, all right. I know Russ got tied up. He was hoping to hop back on. I'm not sure if we will get him, but he did lend some great insight and analysis into the evaluation process. Unfortunately, once we get it back into the big board, he had to take off. Chance Barnett, have scouts made it to Hawaii? Ashlock, yes. I always tune in. I love, you know, one of my favorite parts on Saturday is the wind down, uh, literally. And Hawaii kicks off usually after midnight here in the East Coast in New Jersey. And I always find the Spectrum feed or the bootleg feed, and it can be a mission now finding those Rainbow Warrior games late at night. But I almost watch every Hawaii game, and yes, Ashlock, all he does is make plays. I'm surprised he hasn't transferred out of there. But Hawaii's got some fun players, man. And I was excited too because our good friend Jarrett Regal, who's a part of the Draft Bible scouting department, also works for the Dream Bowl. They had Peter Manumana. Manumana, the safety, was down at the Dream Bowl, caught the attention of the Patriots, didn't get drafted, didn't even get an undrafted free agent contract, but got a rookie minicamp tryout invitation. Went up to Foxborough, and I mean, listen, I'm not calling him Troy Polamalu, but he looks like him with the flying hair, flying up in the box, shooting the gaps, contagious energy. Peter Manumana now got a undrafted free agent contract after the tryout, and now he'll attempt to make the 53-man roster or the practice squad. But those are the players that we love to cover. Those are the players we love to get into, and that's why we're such big fans and advocates of all these alternate leagues. We spoke about the Continental Football League earlier in the show. They kicked off last night. United Football Media. I think over 6,000 people were tuned into the San Antonio Toros game. Defensive coordinator Jerry Glanville. He'll be 85 years old in October. It's unbelievable. And then you had Canadian Football League training camps are officially over. All the cuts were made. If you go over, they're a little bit hard to find when you got to do the news on the menu bar, drop down headlines, drop down transactions. And you can see, actually, I think they had a post this morning of the team by team cuts. I haven't had a chance to dig into that, but some really good players were released. And of course, the United Football League regular season came to an end, or comes to an end today, a doubleheader, 2 games that are meaningless because the playoffs have been decided. But we now have the UFL playoffs underway, CFL kicking off Thursday, Continental Football League. I'll be posting a recap over on the website within the next day or two. We've also got the Big Ten previews now flowing, SEC in the can. We'll move on to the ACC and Big 12 throughout the summer. We've got scouting reports, including Jeremiah Smith, who we were just talking about, scheduled to be posted this week. And allaccessfootball.com is your home for year-round coverage. Subscribe. Make sure you get our free alerts, our notifications for the shows. If you want to upgrade and become a disciple, man, that means a lot to us. And this is our 25th year of providing independent scouting analysis. If you subscribe, that includes the 2027 NFL Draft Bible. And then you get all of our exclusive year-round insider, boots-on-the-ground coverage. We'll be out there at the training camps. We'll be out there in season. We'll be out there at the All-Star games. We'll be out there at the combines. We'll be out there at the pro day trails. And we'll be out there at the draft. So keep it locked over the next 11 months. May is officially in the can. NFL June 1st cuts tomorrow. AJ Brown watch is on. We'll probably have a word, I'm thinking, at some point tomorrow. Looks like he'll be a New England Patriot. Could the Chiefs or a dark horse team such as the Jaguars swoop in last second? Who knows? But it's going to be interesting. And that's what we do, is chop it up each week, Shout out to my co-host Russ Lande, who unfortunately was intermittent with us today. And again, you can go back and watch all of the archives. We did the quarterback show, the running back show, the wide receiver show. Big shout out to Russ, who joins us each and every week. And again, he'll be scouting for the Senior Bowl. Big shout out to the chat room people. We had John Everett. We had Adams Exploits. Says, thanks, Rick and Russ. Thank you from a Douglas Dorner. Thank you for Chance Barnett getting interactive with it. Always great to have a fresh voice. And we're trying to grow this platform. We ain't going anywhere. We'll be here each and every Sunday, hopefully at 9 a.m. Eastern. I appreciate your patience today. We had a little bit of a late start, some alternate programming, little baldy breakdowns at the beginning of the show. So if you do go back and watch the archives, you'll have to fast forward through the alternate programming. And we'll be back next week to talk tight ends. And not quite as historic as this wide receiver class is shaping up to be. But, man, there's a couple of really, really good ones. And I think you've noticed over the last couple years, we're seeing tight ends that we've never quite seen before. And the government says they're walking amongst us. Are these specimen from another universe? Well, we'll talk NFL draft universe next week once again. But I swear, bigger, stronger, faster for the last 25 years I've been doing this. For Russ Lande, Rick Serritella, all of the chat room people and disciples, we'll be back at it again next Sunday. Thank you so much for your patience. Smash that like button, share it, subscribe it one more time while you're here, and we'll see you next week.